Part 3, Chapter 2. Though far from comfortable, the mess was just large enough to hold the entire crew. Since they rarely ate their meals simultaneously, the always functional auto chef indirectly encouraging individuality in eating habits, it hadn't been designed with comfortable seating for 7 in mind. They shuffled from foot to foot, bumping and jostling each other and trying not to get on each other's nerves. Parker and Brett weren't happy and took no pains to hide their displeasure. Their sole consolation was the knowledge that nothing was wrong with engineering, and that whatever they'd been revived to deal with was the responsibility of persons other than themselves. Ripley had already filled them in on the disconcerting absence of their intended destination. Parker considered that they would all have to re-enter hypersleep, a messy and uncomfortable process at best, and cursed underneath his breath. He resented anything that kept him separated from his end-of-voyage paycheck. "We know we haven't arrived at Sol, Captain." Kane spoke for the others, who were all eyeing Dallas expectantly. "We're nowhere near home, and the ship has seen fit to hustle us all out of hypersleep. Time we found out why." "Time you did," Dallas agreed readily. "As you all know," he began importantly, "Mother is programmed to interrupt our journey and bring us out of hyperdrive and sleep if certain specified conditions arise." He paused for effect, said, "They have." It would have to be pretty serious. Lambert was watching Jones the cat play with a blinking telltale. "You know that. Bringing a full crew out of hypersleep isn't lightly done. There's always some risk involved." "Tell me about it." Parker muttered it so softly only Brett could overhear. "You'll all be happy to learn," Dallas continued, "that the emergency we've been awakened to deal with does not involve the Nostromo. Mother says we're in perfect shape." A couple of heartfelt amens sounded in the cramped mess. "The emergency lies elsewhere, specifically in the unlisted system we've recently entered. We should be closing in on the particular planet concerned right now." He glanced at Ash, who rewarded him with a confirming nod. "We've picked up a transmission from another source. It's garbled and apparently took Mother some time to puzzle out, but it's definitely a distress signal." "Whoa, that doesn't make sense." Lambert looked puzzled herself. "Of all standard transmissions, emergency calls are the most straightforward and the least complex. Why would Mother have the slightest trouble interpreting one?" "Mother speculates that this is anything but a standard transmission. It's an acoustic beacon signal, which repeats at intervals of 12 seconds. That much isn't unusual. However, she believes the signal is not of human origin." That provoked some startled muttering. When the first excitement had faded, he explained further. "Mother's not positive. That's what I don't understand. I've never seen a computer show confusion before. Ignorance, yes, but not confusion. This may be a first. What is important is that she's certain enough it's a distress signal to pull us out of hypersleep." "So what?" Brett appeared sublimely unconcerned. Kane replied with just a hint of irritation. "Come on, man. You know your manual. We're obliged under Section B2 of Company in-transit directives to render whatever aid and assistance we can in such situations, whether the call is human or otherwise." Parker kicked at the deck in disgust. "Christ, I hate to say this, but we're a commercial tug with a big, hard-to-handle cargo. Not a damned rescue unit. This kind of duty's not in our contract." He brightened slightly. "Of course, if there's some extra money involved for such work." "You better read your own contract," Ash recited as neatly as the main computer he was so proud of. "Any systematic transmission indicating possible intelligent origin must be investigated, at penalty of full forfeiture of all pay and bonuses due on journey's completion. Not a word about bonus money for helping someone in distress." Parker gave the deck another kick, kept his mouth shut. Neither he nor Brett considered himself the hero type. Anything that could force a ship down on a strange world might treat them in an equally inconsiderate manner. Not that they had any evidence that this unknown caller had been forced down, but being a realist in a harsh universe, he was inclined to be pessimistic. Brett simply saw the detour in terms of his delayed paycheck. "We're going in. That's all there is to it." Dallas eyed each of them in turn. He was about fed up with the two of them. He no more enjoyed this kind of detour than they did, and was anxious to be home and offloading their cargo as they were. But there were times when letting off steam crossed over into disobedience. "Right," said Brett sardonically. "Right what?" The engineering tech was no fool. The combination of Dallas's tone, combined with the expression on his face, told Brett it was time to ease up. "Right, we're going in." Dallas continued to stare at him, and he added with a smile, "Sir." The captain turned a jaundiced eye on Parker, but that worthy was now subdued. "Can we land on it?" he asked Ash. "Somebody did." "That's what I mean," he said significantly. "Land is a benign term. It implies a sequence of events successfully carried out, resulting in the gentle and safe touchdown of a ship on a hard surface. We're faced with a distress call. That implies events other than benign. Let's go find out what's going on, but let's go quietly, with boots in hand." There was an illuminated cartographic display table on the bridge. Dallas, Kane, Ripley, and Ash stood at opposite points of its compass, while Lambert sat at her station. "There it is." Dallas fingered a glowing point on the table. He looked around the table. "Something I want everyone to hear." They resumed their seats as he nodded to Lambert. Her fingers were poised over a particular switch. "Okay, let's hear it. Watch the volume." The navigator flipped the switch. Static and hissing sounds filled the bridge. These cleared suddenly and were replaced by a sound that sent shivers up Kane's back, and unholy crawling things down Ripley's. It lasted for 12 seconds, then was replaced by the static. "Good God!" Kane's expression was drawn. Lambert switched off the speakers. It was human again on the bridge. "What the hell is it?" Ripley looked as though she'd just seen something dead on her lunch plate. "It doesn't sound like any distress signal I've ever heard." "That's what Mother calls it," Dallas told them. Calling it alien turns out to have been something of an understatement. "Maybe it's a voice." Lambert paused, considered her just uttered words, found the implications they raised unpleasant, and tried to pretend she hadn't said them. "We'll know soon. Have you homed in on it?" I've found the section of the planet. Lambert turned gratefully to her console, relieved to be able to deal with mathematics instead of disquieting thoughts. We're close enough. Mother wouldn't have pulled us out of hypersleep unless we were, Ripley murmured. It's coming from ascension 6 minutes 20 seconds. Declination minus 39 degrees 2 seconds. Show me the whole thing on screen. The navigator hit a succession of buttons. One of the bright view screens flickered, gifted them with a bright dot. High albedo, can you get it a little closer? No, you have to look at it from this distance. That's what I'm going to do. Immediately, the screen zoomed in tighter on the point of light, revealing an unspectacular, slightly oblate shape sitting in emptiness. Smart ass. Dallas voiced it without malice. You sure that's it? It's a crowded system. That's it, all right. Just a planetoid, really. Maybe 1,200 kilometers? No more. Any rotation? Yeah, about 2 hours, working off the initial figures. I'll tell you better in 10 minutes. That's good enough for now. What's the gravity? Lambert studied different readouts. 0.86. Must be pretty dense stuff. Don't tell Parker and Brett, said Ripley. They'll be thinking it's solid heavy metal and wander off somewhere prospecting before we can check out our unknown broadcaster. Ash's observation was more prosaic. You can walk on it. They settled down to working out orbiting procedure. The Nostromo edged close to the tiny world, trailing its vast cargo of tanks and refinery equipment. Approaching orbital apogee. Mark. 20 seconds. 19. 18. Lambert continued to count down while her mates worked steadily around her. Roll 92 degrees starboard yaw, announced Kane, thoroughly businesslike. The tug and refinery rotated, performing a massive pirouette in the vastness of space. Light appeared at the stern of the tug as her secondary engines fired briefly. Equatorial orbit nailed, declared Ash. Below them, the miniature world rotated unconcernedly. Give me an EC pressure reading. Ash examined gauges, spoke without turning to face Dallas. 3.45 and /m squared. About 5 psia, sir. Shout if it changes. You worried about redundancy management disabling CMGS control when we're busy elsewhere? Yeah. CMG control is inhibited via DAS/DCS. We'll augment with TACS and monitor through ATM, DC and computer interface. Feel better now? A lot. Ash was a funny sort, kind of coldly friendly, but supremely competent. Nothing rattled him. Dallas felt confident with the science officer backing him up, watching his decisions. Prepare to disengage from platform. He flipped a switch, addressed a small pickup. Engineering, prepare to disengage. L alignment on port and starboard is green, reported Parker, all hint of usual sarcasm absent. Green on spinal umbilicus severance, added Brett. Crossing the Terminator, Lambert informed them all, entering nightside. Below, a dark line split thick clouds, leaving them brightly reflecting on one side, dark as the inside of a grave on the other. It's coming up! It's coming up! Stand by! Lambert threw switches in sequence. Stand by! 15 seconds. 10. 5. 4, 3, 2, 1, lock. Disengage, ordered Dallas curtly. Tiny puffs of gas showed between the Nostromo and the ponderous coasting bulk of the refinery platform. The two artificial structures, one tiny and inhabited, the other enormous and deserted, drifted slowly apart. Dallas watched the separation intently on number 2 screen. Umbilicus clear, Ripley announced after a short pause. Precision corrected. Kane leaned back in his seat, relaxing for a few seconds. All clean and clear. Separation successful. No damage. Check here, added Lambert. And here, said a relieved Ripley. Dallas glanced over at his navigator. You sure we've left her in a steady orbit? I don't want the whole 2 billion tons dropping and burning up while we're poking around downstairs. Atmosphere's not thick enough to give us a safe umbrella. Lambert checked a readout. She'll stay up here for a year or two easy, sir. All right. The money's safe and so are our skulls. Let's take it down. Prepare for atmospheric flight. 5 humans worked busily, each secure in his or her assigned task. Jones the cat sat on a port console and studied the approaching clouds. Dropping. Lambert's attention was fixed on one particular gauge. 50,000 meters. Down. Down. 49,000. Entering atmosphere. Dallas watched his own instrumentation, tried to evaluate and memorize the dozens of steadily shifting figures. Deep space travel was a question of paying proper homage to one's instruments and letting Mother do the hard work. Atmospheric flight was another story entirely. For a change, it was pilot's work instead of a machine's. Brown and grey clouds kissed the underside of the ship. Watch it. Looks nasty down there. How like Dallas, Ripley thought. Somewhere in the dun-hued hell below, another ship was bleating a regular, inhuman, frightening distress call. The world itself was unlisted, which meant they'd begin from scratch where such matters as atmospheric peculiarities, terrain, and such were concerned. Yet to Dallas, it was no more or less than nasty. She'd often wondered what a man as competent as their captain was doing, squiring an unimportant tub like the Nostromo around the cosmos. The answer, could she have read his mind, would have surprised her. He liked it. Vertical descent computed and entered. Correcting course slightly, Lambert informed them. On course now, homing. Locked, and we're headed in straight. Check. How's our plotting going to square with secondary propulsion in this weather? We're doing okay so far, sir. I can't say for sure until we get under these clouds, if we can get under them. Good enough. He frowned at a readout, touched a button. The reading changed to a more pleasing one. Let me know if you think we're going to lose it. Will do. The tug struck an invisibility, invisible to the eye, not to her instruments. She bounced once, twice, a third time, then settled more comfortably into the thick wad of dark cloud. The ease of entry was a tribute to Lambert's skills in plotting and Dallas's as a pilot. It did not last. Within the ocean of air, heavy currents swirled. They began buffeting the descending ship. Turbulence! Ripley wrestled with her own controls. Give us navigation and landing lights. Dallas tried to sort sense from the maelstrom obscuring the view screen. Maybe we can spot something visually. No substitute for the instruments, said Ash. Not in this. No substitute for maximum input either. Anyhow, I like to look. Powerful lights came on beneath the Nostromo. They pierced the cloud waves only weakly, did not provide the clear field of vision Dallas so badly desired. But they did illuminate the dark screens, thereby lightening both the bridge and the mental atmosphere thereon. Lambert felt less like they were flying through ink. Parker and Brett couldn't see the cloud cover outside, but they could feel it. The engine room gave a sudden shift, rocked to the opposite side, shifted sharply again. Parker swore under his breath. "What was that? You hear that?" "Yeah." Brett examined a readout nervously. "Pressure drop in intake number 3. We must have lost a shield." He punched buttons. "Yep, 3's gone. Dust pouring through the intake." "Shut her down! Shut her down!" "What do you think I'm doing?" "Great. So we've got a secondary full of dust." "No problem. I hope." Brett adjusted a control. "I'll bypass number 3 and vent the stuff back out as it comes in." "Damage is done, though." Parker didn't like to think what the presence of wind-blown abrasives might have done to the intake lining. "What the hell are we flying through? Clouds or rocks? If we don't crash, dollars to your aunt's cherry, we've got an electrical fire somewhere in the relevant circuitry." Unaware of the steady cursing taking place in engineering, the 5 on the bridge went about the business of trying to set the tug down intact and near to the signal source. Approaching point of origin. Lambert studied a gauge. Closing at 25 kilometers. 20. 10. 5. Slowing and turning. Dallas leaned over on the manual helm. "Correct course, 3 degrees, 4 minutes right." He complied with the directions. "That's got it. 5 kilometers to center of search circle, and steady." "Tightening now." Dallas fingered the helm once more. 3 kilometers. 2. Lambert sounded just a mite excited, though whether from the danger or the nearness of the signal source, Dallas couldn't tell. "We're practically circling above it now." "Nice work, Lambert. Ripley, what's the terrain like? Find us a landing spot." "Working, sir." She tried several panels, her expression of disgust growing deeper as unacceptable readings came back. Dallas continued to make sure the ship held its target in the center of its circling flight path, while Ripley fought to make sense of the unseen surface. "Visual line of sight impossible." "We can see that," Kane mumbled. "Or rather, can't see it." The rare half-glimpses the instruments had given him of the ground hadn't put him in a pleasant frame of mind. The occasional readings had hinted at extensive desolation, a hostile, barren desert of a world. "Radar gives me noise." Ripley wished electronics could react to imprecations as readily as people. "Sonar gives me noise. Infrared, noise." "Hang on, I'm going to try ultraviolet." "Spectrum's high enough not to interfere." A moment followed by the appearance of a crucial readout of some gratifying lines at last, followed in turn by brightly lit words and a computer sketch. That did it. "And a place to land?" Ripley looked fully relaxed now. "As near as I can tell, we can set down anywhere you like. Readings say it's flat below us. Totally flat." Dallas's thoughts turned to visions of smooth lava, of a cool but deceptively thin crust barely concealing molten destruction. "Yeah, but flat what? Water? Pahoho? Sand?" Bounce something off, Kane. Get us a determination. I'll take her down low enough so that we lose most of this interference. If it's flat, I can get us close without too much trouble. Kane flipped switches. Monitoring. Analytics activated. Still getting noise. Carefully, Dallas eased the tug towards the surface. Still noisy, but starting to clear. Again, Dallas lost altitude. Lambert watched gauges. They were more than high enough for safe clearance, but at the speed they were travelling, that could change rapidly if anything went wrong with the ship's engines, or if an otherworldly downdraft should materialise. Nor could they cut their speed further. In this wind, that would mean a critical loss of control. Clearing, clearing. Yeah, that's got it. He studied readouts and contour lines provided by the ship's imaging scanner. It was molten once, but not anymore. Not for a long time, according to the analytics. It's mostly basalt, some rhyolite, with occasional lava overlays. Everything's cool and solid now. No sign of tectonic activity. He utilized other instruments to probe deeper into the secrets of the tiny world's skin. No faults of consequence below us or in the immediate vicinity. Should be a nice place to set down. Dallas thought briefly. You're positive about that surface composition? It's too old to be anything else. The executive officer sounded a touch peeved. I know enough to check age data along with composition. Think I'd take any chances of putting us down inside a volcano? All right, sorry. Just checking. I haven't done a landing without charts and beacon since school training. I'm a bit nervous. Ain't we all? Admitted Lambert readily. If we're set then? No one objected. Let's take it down. I'm going to spiral in as best I can in this wind, try to get us as close as possible. But you keep a tight signal watch on, Lambert. I don't want us coming down on top of that calling ship. Warn me for distance if we get too close. His tone was intense in the cramped room.